All right, Yield Nerds, episode 185. I'm introducing Mini Me. I'm Yield Nerd. You will be meeting Tax Nerd today. When I go hunting for yield, I'm going to meet who the Tax Nerd is and what he does. And I have a new utility to share with you if you are a Schwab investor. I'll tell you more. 495 something subscribers. We have several playlists. The one I would recommend you start with if you're new to the show is the Income Investing Roadmap. This particular one will belong to the munis and the agency bonds as well. And so let's get going. But before we go, I want to make sure you know that I am depending on you to also fact check. I've done my research, but you need to do your own. Don't believe what I say. Check your own data. Well, four parts. We'll look at the market temperature as I stuff money into my bag, and we'll then do the quick check on the yield Super Bowl and what it's telling us with respect to where the market is headed. And I'll introduce you to the tax nerd, and finally a review of my holdings. My portfolio, specific to equity, has been growing by the day. And as I put money into my bag, you can see that there are holes at the bottom of the bag because some of the money is falling out on the street. And what I mean by that is I have learned to become more tax efficient, and I'll tell you my lessons and make sure you implement and learn your own lessons and share them with me, and I'll learn one or two from you as well. So I'm up to close to 9% in equities, and this is a big change from where I was not even a year ago. And as my equities make me very smart, as you can see with this well-dressed version of me, I also am learning a lesson or two on how to trade. If you are new, you may or may not know that I developed my own algorithm to trade. I shared that algorithm. It is public domain. If you go back a couple of episodes, I share where you can access it and you can run it as well. It looks for a very simple signal. It sees when the MACD goes above the signal, and then it monitors it for 3 consecutive days of growth. If there are 3 consecutive days of growth after the MACD crosses the signal, then I buy that particular equity and I hold it. The only time I sell it is if that equity crashes 20% below my basis, and the results, I will show you where they are in a couple of minutes. But if I let this loose on all publicly traded stocks and just say, just go scour the data and tell me where MACD is crossing signal, in companies with low debt, high trading volume, there are a few other criteria. Once I let it loose, the system automatically starts searching and finding equities where there is an upward trajectory in the recent past. That's essentially what it's doing. And when I start buying them and holding, here is my return compared to NASDAQ. Check it out. The last 3 months, October 23rd until January 22nd, the NASDAQ is at 3.2%. Look at how my algorithm has worked. Magic at 13.16%. And as I saw that, I was like, wait, how could I be beating the NASDAQ so much? There's got to be something else that's going on. So I started looking for other correlations. What did the algorithm detect in terms of sudden upswings that the average NASDAQ did not detect? And lo and behold, I did find the correlation that got detected. This is America's small businesses. As I finished my workout at the gym in front of the New York Stock Exchange as a small business owner, I realized that all that my algorithm did is looked at the whole market and picked the segment of the market where there was an upswing. And turns out the Russell has had an absolute storied run over the last 3 months. And my algorithm just zoned in on it and picked it up. So every recommendation it made was indeed a stock that was part of the Russell. And I'm still leading the Russell. The Russell was up 8%, 7.8% over the last 3 months. I'm up 11%. So a majority of them must have been in the Russell. I never went looking for Russell stocks, but my algorithm picked it up. And I thought, did the Russell really do as well? Did the American small business owner really make out like this champ that you see here in front of the stock market? Turns out it did. The Russell winning streak is the longest in 30 years. And when I write an algorithm that only chases momentum, it picked up that winning streak. And so now I'm going to go back to it. And if indeed the Russell takes a negative turn, I don't want to go up and down with the Russell. I want to constantly stay with momentum, so I'm going to be looking at my algorithm again. Well, now that I've figured out how I'm making money on the equity side, I then wanted to go back and figure out how to make money on the fixed income side. To be clear, I am not a wealth management advisor. This is not investment advice or tax advice. I am sharing my knowledge. You make your decisions, and I don't do any secret product and t-shirts and so on. But to be clear, my bond strategy is very simple. I look for bonds that are tax advantaged, that can beat bonds that are not tax advantaged, and then some. So if I buy a bond, I want its yield to be above certain thresholds. I do not buy above par, because if the bond gets called, I lose my shirt. And so I buy bonds that can beat the 10-year on a handsome basis, or I buy bonds where on a tax advantage basis, like a muni, for example, it beats the 10-year and then some by a big number. And if it is corporate bonds, I haven't bought one lately. I again look for a corporate bond to beat the 10-year on a 10-year term, plus also a premium. And so when I add all of these conditions, I really don't find too many corporate bonds that match the picture. And so the implication for me is if I buy munis at coupons well above treasury, so if I buy a 10-year muni, I want a coupon of 4.25%. If I buy a 20-year muni, I want a coupon of 5%. And as long as I keep buying them below par and I keep getting the tax-free income, and if it gets called, and some of them get called, if I buy it at $99.50, I also get the gain, which is tax-free. And if I buy it at an OID and the OID is unused, I also get that tax-free. So we've looked at the yield Super Bowl before, and we see the classic, what we call bear steepening. What that tells me is I got to be careful about extending duration. As long as I have a strategy, I can extend duration, and I'm going to tell you what my strategy is. But what I do know is the short-term rates are plunging down, so I'm not going to keep a big allocation in the short term, so I got to put it somewhere. So the question is, where do I put it? We reviewed that I could put it in munis. However, these munis were trading above par, so I'm not going to buy above par munis. Then the question is, where would I put it? I go back to my small business owner background and say, where can I put it? And it turns out there is a 5.5% CD from a really stable bank that isn't going to default, doesn't have a lot of trading volume, but as long as I'm prepared to hold it to maturity, I'm good with it. And that is what I ended up doing. So you can see that my treasury allocation, this used to be 90% a year ago. It is now down to 40%. My stocks used to be 2% a year ago. Now it is up to almost 9%. Where is it all going? I'm moving stuff into muni bonds based on my strategy, but the big gainer of late has been agency bonds. And agency bonds used to be 5% a year ago. Now it is more like 21%, and I keep adding more. And that is the core 2-year CD, if you will, because I expect most of these agency bonds to be called even sooner than 2 years. Agency bonds have a special kind of call. It's called a Bermuda call, which means at any point, it could be a 20-year agency bond. They don't have corporate bonds sometimes say you cannot call it until 5 years before maturity and all that kind of stuff. The Bermuda call option pretty much means you could issue a 20-year agency bond and it could be callable 3 months later and every month thereafter. Well, that's the negative of owning an agency bond. You're going to get the money back and you'll have a reinvestment risk. But I'm willing to take that risk. And I am increasing duration. However, practically all my increased duration is coming from agency bonds that pay a high amount. Which agency bonds, you might ask? I am putting my money in FHLB and FFCB. What is the FHLB? I'm giving you the short answer. There is a whole episode on agency bonds, a track on agency bonds. So I would encourage you to go listen to that. But FHLB banks are a set of banks that lend to banks, the smaller banks, regional banks, commercial banks, that in turn lend to mortgages. And FFCB lend to the ag sector. Well, a couple of nice things for FHLB and FFCB. They both have what's called a superior lien on it, which means they get paid back first. They both are also fully collateralized, except in the ag sector, fully collateralized means you hold funds in the bank account. However, in the FHLB side, if the bank wants to write 100 million in mortgages, they have to do what's called a haircut. If they want to borrow 100 million, they have to pledge 128 million. That's called a haircut. So FHLB has this huge advantage, which is that not only are all the FHLB bonds securitized, they are also securitized on haircuts, where the bank has to go bankrupt. And in addition to that, you can then walk in and say, if they only lose 10 cents on the dollar, and if they only lose 20 cents on the dollar, because you're the first lien holder, you will still get your money back. Not only that, there is also a super protection, as it is called, meaning if one FHLB bank screws up, the other 10 are obligated to bail that one bank out. So FHLB sounds pretty good to me. I've put a lot of my investment dollars on the FHLB. I do have some FFCB. If you buy FFCB, be prepared to hold it to maturity. That gets called far less often than the FHLB. The FHLB gets called all over the place. So I talked to you about the tax nerd. Why is the tax nerd important right now? Let me tell you why. Well, on Schwab, if you log in and go to accounts, you can see that there is a choice called investment income at the very bottom. When you click it, you're going to see a table like this. It's going to show your monthly income. It's going to show the total. Well, it's missing a little minor detail. T-bills, when they have a gain, if you buy a T-bill at $99 and it's going to appreciate to $1, well, that $1 is nowhere on the income because Schwab would argue it's not income, it's a gain. Well, that means your income is not what you see here if you have a lot in T-bills. I have 40% in T-bills. And so you have to figure out what is your real income. A couple of other things are also not there. So here is what I did. I wrote a script. The first thing you have to do is click that little download button on the income area. Download your income to a CSV file. When you download it, I did find a bug. Hey Schwab, I called your customer support about it. If you try to download next 12 months, it doesn't work. And you click download and the file doesn't come. However, if you change the date range to custom and you pick the next 12 months, somehow it works. I don't know why, but here is what I did. I downloaded it to a CSV file. However, it still did not tell me very quickly what my estimated taxes ought to be. So I wrote a script and I'm going to share that script with you. The links are there in the description to this email. So here is what I've done. If you download two income reports, one of them could be for last year and one of them could be for this year. So if you save last year's as lastyear.csv and this year as thisyear.csv, you will then need to download Python. And if you have not downloaded Python, it's not too hard to download. I'm going to share the source code. You don't have to use it. You can review it and you can see how it works. It just moves the Schwab income report and prints a summary table. And so here is an example of my own desktop. So I have a whole bunch of CSVs, but I do have this year demo and last year demo. So I took my own income statement, and for demo, I just replaced everything with 1. So instead of the actual holdings, it'll just say $1 for everything. And it then is going to say, hey, there are 3 other things that are not in the Schwab income report. One of them is the T-bill gain. How much is your T-bill gain? What was it for last year? And what is it for this year? Or what do you anticipate it to be for this year? And so let's say that you own a T-bill for $99 and the T-bill matures on June 30th, which is half the year. Well, that $99 is going to become $100. That's $1 of gain. But then you also would take that $100 and reinvest it and start from July 1st and go to December 31st. So you kind of sort of make an assumption and say, well, if the interest rates are 3.6% right now for T-bills, I'm going to make 3.6% times 100 for the whole year. So you would enter in that scenario a T-bill gain of $3.6 or $3.60. So make your own guess of what you think your T-bill gain is going to be, because it is not there on the Schwab income report. And then you get to make a guess if you have any other income. Maybe you have a consulting company, maybe you work a full-time job. So you can put that income. Your bank may give interest. So you enter the data for last year, you enter the data, your estimate for this year, and out comes a nice report from that Python script. And you can see the source code for the script in this link, and I'm going to put it in the description. It will literally tell you if you were to make a trade. For example, if you sold a treasury and you bought an agency bond, how much did that affect your income? How much did it affect your tax? And how much, therefore, did it affect the money in your bank? Now, it has a few assumptions that you should tweak. One of them being what is your marginal tax and what is your effective tax and what is your state tax. You should set it to whatever your state tax is and whatever your effective tax is. It takes that into account and gives you an idea so you can pay estimated taxes more wisely. I've started using it as I move from short-term T-bills to agency bonds and muni bonds. In this scenario, for example, if I trade a 3.6% T-bill for a 3.5% muni, well, what is my effective tax rate? By how much is the 3.6% going to be increased because I don't pay federal taxes on it? T-bills don't pay state taxes. Therefore, I need to increase the T-bill yield. So this literally plays Yield Nerd out of a box for you. So you should be able to enter, and I entered it. And you can see the source code. If you understand Python, you're going to see that it has various assumptions on how each of these are taxed. State only, state plus federal, federal only, that kind of stuff. And it computes the tax from the Schwab output for each of the line items and gives you your income, your tax, and your net amount in the bank account by line item. These are all hypothetical numbers, but you will get real numbers when you do it. And in this scenario, it's saying whatever hypothetical adjustment that was made drops income by $135, drops taxes by 43. Ooh, you have a $90 hole. So therefore, make sure that you either get more income at a lower tax or you get way more income at a slightly lower tax to make up the difference. That's kind of the message it would give in a real scenario. Well, where am I with my stock holdings? I'm still doing pretty well, although I've taken some of my money out and I'm now trying to look for new areas where I can invest, some of which are in the Russell and some of which are not. For example, Immunity Bio is now showing up as a new momentum stock, so I put some money in there. Moderna, Yelp. So these are all new stocks that I put money. Glue, Monte Rosa Therapeutics, Kinross Gold. So anything where the curve is going up, my algorithm picks it up. Alcoa. And so I'm starting to put money in these where momentum is indicating that it is moving up. And as you can see, aside from the first page with 5 or 6 stocks, practically everything else is up and above, mainly because my algorithm catches momentum. And so, this is still in the under 20%. Liquidia Corporation is another drug maker. So a lot of the momentum is showing up on the pharma side, small pharma side. So my algorithm is picking it up. And all the way at the very, very top, I have the data center stocks, which powered the Russell last quarter. So I'm sitting on very nice gains there. That is me. Make sure that you do your own trades. I do own SOX, which is the semiconductor ETF, and SCHD for income. Make sure you do your own due diligence. People like me can be right one day and wrong many days. So make sure you do your own homework. Thank you, and hope you enjoy the Tax Nerd Python script.